I think I messed myself up. Hi, Lisa.
Hey,
How long were you waiting in the waiting room?
I don't know. I was checking my email while I waited.
Oh, that works out. Anyway, I don't like that waiting room setting, but I haven't turned it off before
Oh,
starting.
when I start my meetings, for my people, there's
Yeah.
always like the little security thing. So the first thing I do is when I click on that, it disables you. There's a check mark to disable the waiting room.
You can do that before you go into the meeting.
No, like as soon as I start the meeting,
Yeah.
in that where that says security, like down at the bottom on the host view.
Oh. Aha.
Yeah, I hate it too. So I always disable the waiting room and then I just wait for everybody to show up.
That's helpful. Now Cody's still left in the waiting room, even though I turned it off just now.
I think you have to turn it off before anyone's in there.
Yeah. Well, I good to know. Because I was like plodding around doing things. Good morning, Cody. Plodding around doing things. And I'm like, no one's around, da da da. And then I come
Ah,
back over to this screen just to say, well, maybe I'm missing something. And there you
that's
were.
why I turn it off. Like I start the meeting and I turn the waiting room off because otherwise I would do the same thing.
I'm adding that to my list of things to do. I got this checklist that I do.
Yeah.
I'll even share it. Hold on a moment. So I'm gonna do screen share. I don't know which one it is. Oh, I might I might have a lot of windows open. I'm not going to totally confirm this, but I might have a lot of windows open. Anyway, but so this is like how I get stuff set up. Openly soon 15 minutes early, and then so I go to security, uncheck waiting room. Great.
Adam,
That is a new good thing to do. But I didn't even get that far on my list today. These things have cut down my time a whole bunch when I'm like trying to get something done, especially with this whole apparatus of like, using the internet and saving things here and posting it there and getting things set up. Anyway, it's been pretty handy. It's reduced my time once I get it going. Setting up this checklist is it's a beast. Anyway, so I was setting up YouTube when I was checking on that. So I got that done. I think I saved it ahead of time. And here, I'll post it on the chat. I think I posted it ahead of time. Annotate more. Recording paused. Looking for chat. Where's the darn chat? What's the first one? Okay. So there's the YouTube link for this one. Because you asked for that last time, Cody, and I was like, oh, I suppose I could get that. So I figured out how to get that. See, it even says, and paste.
That's where we were.
Okay, I wanted to paste it in the description sheet. So this is the behind the scenes thing that I do to set up the next meeting and my notes on it and all that stuff. Oh, you don't see that one. Anyway, there's a sheet there. I won't bother with it right now. And paste sheet descriptions. If I decide not to record Zoom, oh yeah, it's something I need to make sure. But I am recording it, so I'll have the chat easily downloaded. When sharing screen, set up view of all participants. Got that. Great. I just, I'm pretty much set, but I just wanted to kind of double check that guy. Okay, so going back to the actual discussion. Oh, I do want to. Okay, so I'll show you it because it happens to be on the page that descriptions. There we go. Okay, that was weird. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so this is a little background stuff. So I've pasted the YouTube here, and here's my points and the name and stuff. Anyway, that's something I do behind the scenes. We're gonna focus on this guy, and we're gonna present. Another thing I've realized, I was listening to Seth Godin, and he kind of starts out with like a little like teaser or some sort of content. And so I'm thinking about putting like my 3 points or whatever, like as the first thing instead of staying like, welcome to Friday Flow. So the big thing we're doing is lead generation to make the world better is why we do it. Because the reason that you're in this business is maybe because you enjoy it, maybe because you just want to make money, but also hopefully because you're trying to like make a big difference. And you can't make a difference if you're not finding the people that actually want your service. And so the reason we do this, generator leads, is because we have something to offer, and we want to find those people that we can offer it to, so we can make the world better and earn income. So how are you creating those leads? So the method I have found I like, but I need to commit to it more, is Book Yourself Solid. It's have you guys heard of that one before?
No.
Cody nodded his head when I mentioned it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I know where you're going, but it's what I do. It's just I don't allow myself downtime because then I'll lose momentum.
I didn't think of that. I'll come back to that though. That's good. So Book Yourself Solid is a book that by, well, I should pull that one up. Okay, so let me grab. I'm going to share a different screen. No, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to escape. Okay, and we're going to pull this up. So Book Yourself Solid. By this guy here, whose name I seem to be blanking on right now. No, here. Oh, I want to go to that. I did it again. Oh well. And it is by. I do this thing where I glance. Michael Port. That's right. Okay. So Michael Port has this Book Yourself Solid method that he. You've mentioned turnkeys before, Lisa, and he calls this his turnkey. So even though your business isn't based on turnkeys, this is like his approach to getting booked solid. And he's kind of got these cool things because he's done Book Yourself Solid. He's done like a cartoon book almost of it. So he took as much as he could change into images and changed it into images at some point. And I want to buy that book. So that's under my buy list. I think I might get it today. But anyway, he has 2 editions. The second edition is more involved like with the technology side of things. But before you even get anywhere in the technology stuff, he has focused on the connecting with people. And he says he hates the term ABC, which means always be closing. And he says instead, always be connecting. So his big approach is that you should always be connecting with people, like, reaching out, talking to them, building things up, and even though it's a turnkey system that he's created, the way he kind of describes it is you shouldn't sound like a turnkey. And when you describe yourself, like I'm a professional organizer, for instance, but what would be better is if I describe myself as, because some people might have had an experience with professional organizers like Marie Kondo. She is a well-known professional organizer and she has a certain way that does it. And some people get really overwhelmed when they do stuff her way. So if I said that's who I am, they think Marie Kondo, and then I've lost the conversation. As opposed to like saying, when someone asks you, what do you do? I say, you know, there's this family business that my friend owned, and he'd been looking for this one little piece that for cutting something, and he had like 12 of them, and he could not find a single one. So he finally decided he needed to hire somebody to take care of making his systems work so he could find stuff like that. And he tried to hire four different employees, and finally he got me on board, and I was able to do what those guys couldn't do in 4 months, and I did it in a week or two. So that's kind of like the sort of thing that I explain because then I get a story. So he goes into more in detail, but he really has a neat way of breaking down like what is it, who's your ideal client, and that sort of thing. So let me go back to the presentation, and I'll talk more about it probably in a bit, but this keeps me on track as much as that matters or can be done with me. Okay. And what would improve your method? For me, improving that method for me is actually doing it. So when I first started that method, it really got exciting. He uses great terms, and he really gets you like sold on yourself and your ability to do what you want to do. But then he also has this workbook side of things where you fill in like all this stuff about like what's your ideal client, what's your target audience, that sort of thing. And I started filling it out, but this was like 7 months ago. And at that point, I just didn't feel like I could figure those things out. I didn't feel I'd met enough people. I didn't feel like I had done enough business to really say, this is what I do. And it's still constantly changing. But now it's really neat because I did engage in it earlier on, and you guys have been doing your business for a while. So this is more like newbie stuff. But for me, I started to like it because it was in the back of my head. I started like trying to focus. So what is it? And for me, going back to like the Marie Kondo thing and other professional organizers, their big thing is to like do houses, you know, and make them look all nice and pretty, and so everybody has a pleasant home. And so I was thinking, because this friend of mine who I really kind of started the business with, he does not own, or he does not have me work in his home. He has me working in these 5 different outbuildings. And I don't know if you've ever been in garages built by family members, but they are not pretty places, okay? Unless you got to really like, anyway, I'm sure there's cases where it's not true, but usually they're messy, okay? And even after I made it streamlined or made it like work well, it's still not a very picturesque thing. It just works well. And so I was like down on myself of like, oh, but I need to get like these into these homes. So, you know, if I show pictures of this stuff, or if I push myself that direction, it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be as profitable. But over time, I've realized, no, actually, that's the stuff I know. It's the stuff I like. And so that's where I should focus. So I've been improving more and more. But the next 3 weeks or the next 3 months, I'm hoping to like master this technique. Okay, so I'm going to go to, oh, there's a nice quote there too. All right, but I'll come back to that. So welcome to Friday Flow. And I'm going to go to the part where I actually welcome you to Friday Flow, because I messed up my method before I moved the slides around. Welcome to Friday Flow. We just talked about lead generations. We're going to introduce ourselves, and then when I wrap up, I'll talk about some events that are coming up that you may or may not know about. So my company is, I've kind of introduced it a little bit in my intro there, but my company is Sparks Flow. And what I get to do is I help people with their team flow, their workflow, their tool flow, in order to create better cash flow. And that is the quick and thingy. And I want to paste my stuff there in the chat. Actually, I might not do it yet because you guys already have it. And I've already got it on my prepped stuff. But please paste your stuff on there so that I've got it. Cool. All right, Lisa, you beat Cody, so you get to go first.
Yay. So, I mean, you guys know what I do. My company does books, taxes, and all kinds of advisory services in an effort to manage your business finances so that you can manage your growth. We work with startups to mid-sized companies, always privately held. That's us.
Thank you.
So I'm Cody Pearson, technology commercialization, operations transformation, all the fun things in between. And I was hoping to see Phil here today. Phil and I had a good conversation earlier this week with his community project that they're scoping out for Valencia County. So there's a lot of there. And
is that the one with Annie Irizarry?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
And it just turns out that there's people that I know in Albuquerque that can plug in from several different directions just to give them some, advisory and it's such a fun thing that, yeah, I'm really excited about it just to see something like that come together. So hopefully he waves that flag even more because there's cool potential for all of that. Yep.
Well, I'm happy for a number of reasons. One is because I think it's a great project. And two is that hopefully that this was a way that you guys are able to connect. So it means that I'm doing my job. So, and Lisa, there was someone else you contacted on 1 Million Cups. Did you know did that go anywhere? I think he talked to you for a moment. Rerouted?
Oh, yeah. So
you can talk about it later too. You can always say like, oh, we'll talk about that later.
Well, yeah, no, it's just, you know how it is in my industry. It's discretion is always the better part of valor.
Yeah.
So we tend not to talk about our clients unless they're openly talking about us.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, good. I'll let that be then. So, anyway, so that, those are kind of cool ways that we get leads too, is by at these events. And getting lead generation during this time in particular is really like, it changed for me, especially. But how much do you guys think it's changed during this time?
It depends what your business is.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, it depends what your business is for leads. What are you selling? What's your market? I mean, you just can't go get leads. It's like saying, go get me food. Okay, great. Well, what type of food? Who are you feeding? How hungry are they? What are they allergic to? What type of nutrients do they need? It's always best to at first identify what your leads should be.
Yeah.
And then drill down into all the various methods. Like both of us, all of us, Adam, Lisa, exactly who you need to get to and how to get to them, or evolving how that. And Adam, I know you're forming your business still.
Yeah.
Do you have a better idea of who your potential customer base is? Do you feel like you have a good, 80-90% understanding of how to reach that market, or do you still think there's a lot of unknowns there for you?
I got a whole lot of unknowns, and Lisa's brought this up before too. Like when we've been talking on the phone elsewhere, is what, because you were pointing out that you have a certain focus in your business, and he said, "What do you think mine is?" And I'd already kind of been working on it a little bit, so I was a little more prepared when I had talked to you about this. But my big income has come from small construction companies. So roofing and vacuum excavation, which I always have to explain when I mention it. So I usually try to avoid mentioning the name, but it always seems to come up. So these are like the ones that really were big business for me, is have income, but I've also then done other side things. But I really want to try and focus on family business sort of stuff. And I'm planning to go with LinkedIn and figure out how I can find that sort of in there. And a lot of it's going to be cold calls. And that's another thing that I've not been very good at. I have good people skills. I enjoy people, but I just don't like calling.
So one thing for small mom and pop privately owned businesses like that is you're not gonna find all of them on LinkedIn because it's
Yeah,
valuable for them to be on LinkedIn. What's valuable for them is to find, and you'll find this in the banking industry. So, I'd recommend getting into the commercial banking industry. Those people who are, selling, the products for the local banks to the local small and medium-sized businesses in town.
yeah,
Those will be your connectors to the small and medium-sized business, not LinkedIn.
yeah,
That entire industry, the commercial banking industry, is all fed by usually face-to-face networking, a lot of happy hours, a lot of little fundraisers for here and there. There's always
yeah,
be, they're literally called leads groups,
yeah.
and that will be really your sweet spot. Then you'll get better informed from those people how you find the small and medium-sized businesses in your local market. Sometimes you'll be walking through the front door of the Better Business Bureau. Maybe there's a downtown business association or an Albuquerque or a Bernalillo business association.
Or the Albuquerque
Economic development. Yep.
yeah. Is
Yep.
that kind of the same thing you're thinking about, or?
A little bit. They'll give you kind of a higher level. They're more there to facilitate. But those people who are truly be savvy on how to navigate all this will be kind of that commercial banker industry or the insurance industry. So tapping into kind of the insurance reps that address small, medium-sized businesses. Those will be, if you can kind of spend the next week to see who who knows that community. It may be worthwhile, or it may just be worthwhile to get into that community, learn what's there, and say, nope, not a fit. But you should at least, explore that option to see if it is a fit, how it's a fit, or absolutely not a fit.
Are you talking about the Albuquerque Economic Development Society, or?
No, I mean, you can touch on that, but more broadly, the commercial banking industry and then the
Okay, they're going back to the bank thing. Okay.
insurance industry. Mm-hmm.
So how, because I just like this conversation I was having with Lisa, because Lisa pointed out, she's like, if they're not talking about them, then how much are they going to be able to talk to me? Because, for instance, I talked to the Chamber of Commerce. Is Chamber of Commerce? No, city. This was in the city. And I was talking to this guy about trying to make leads for 1 million cups, for people to come in. And he says, they don't share information like that, but he can encourage the other direction. And so, and I'm just wondering how much you run into that kind of thing too, of like, if I come in contact with them, how much are there like this? Is there a transparent wall between the, well, one of the terms I've heard is gatekeeper, and the actual group that you're hoping to interact with?
Well, it's absolutely that, they may help you promote you internally within their membership body or give you some options to buy into that exposure. But just like the same responsibility that Lisa has with her clients, these organizations have the same responsibility to their membership, not to,
Totally.
just open them out to, any sales poacher, which is why we do that sweet spot of the leads groups, working with all of that.
That is really interesting. So this leads group thing, is it just with bankers or insurance agencies, and then they open it out like they create this within their agency, or is it?
It's always been an organic thing where it always gets to be like say I'm the SVP of sales for this bank. It's not really the SVP level, so you're looking more at kind of the director level or senior level, where I know I have my leads here, but I also am friendly over here with this leader over here at this bank and this bank. And it evolves to like, what, every Friday morning or every Tuesday morning, let's just get together for coffee.
Yeah.
You three know what I hear. They let me know what they hear. And that's how it always starts.
Yeah.
Then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So even if you just, use the term leads groups, and see what's showing on Meetup, or taking a different approach like that, or
Yeah.
some people in the banking industry or financial services industry. It's the same thing.
So I have an example that I go to. There's an apartments meeting on Meetups that they meet every Friday morning. It's apartment breakfasts or something, and so or rentals breakfast, because there's some commercial spots in the group too. Yeah. And that's kind of a neat group that I've started going to. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, you literally ask them, hey guys, do you know any other leads groups? I'm just looking to connect better into the small, medium-sized, privately owned, industry X, whether you want to stay in construction industry or whatever. But I mean, for what you do, your skills are applicable, everything from, the folks you've worked for right now all the way out to,
yeah.
TV and film prop studios and those types of things,
Yeah.
So
I've worked with people like Rob has made it obvious. He's a mortgage originator. So there's not a lot of like inventory or things to move around, but there's other stuff. And then I've also worked with a political campaign and with someone starting up a business that was more theoretical about solar technology. So there's lots of different ways, like you said, I could apply it. And one of the things that Michael Port really pushes for is to really niche down. And he also pushes for this kind of thing. Since I brought it up, I'll mention it. So this is the founder of BNI, which I'm sure you both know. It was new to me about half a year ago, but Business International is Ivan Misner. He started this kind of like leads group, right? Do you think BNI would be a leads group, right?
I don't know who BNI is.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm even learning. I am sharing things. That's always makes me feel wonderful when some people say, I don't know about that. So BNI is Business International, Business Network International, and it started by Ivan Misner. But here, real quick, because I'm going to go away from it, he talks about escaping, or during this time especially, not everyone's going to be in the mood for buying, but there's some people that business is growing right now. So I wouldn't totally apply it. But the big thing he and Michael Port agree on is always be connecting. So you want to connect with people and build rapport that way, because then you can really serve them. If you know them better, they have trust. It's a big thing in all of our businesses is you got to be able to trust the people, because they're putting so much information in your hands about their world. It's just huge. So making connections. I'm going to write BNI in here. BNI.
So we're going down, just before we lose track of you having a connection to a mortgage originator in town.
Yes.
That's the type of person who will be able to give you a little bit more of a better understanding of the landscape of a leads group. He will probably be able to just start unraveling for you what those dynamics are in Albuquerque. So definitely follow up with that person.
And he was going to join today. You've met him, I think, Bill, Rob Hill.
Yep.
He's come on here.
Yep.
Yeah. So Business Network International, this is New Mexico, but the BNI is a group that he started with, and that this one guy started. And they're really like, so there's two types of like groups. There's the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm not too sure if that's also a leads group. Would you call that a leads group?
I mean, you can always contact them. They may facilitate some sort of regular breakout, but like, I'd recommend doing some foundational research to just understand what chambers of commerces are usually established to do.
Yeah.
Because it's more times than not, it's a standardized concept for every small town all the way up to metropolitan area.
Yeah, they kind of get together and interact, and they use like special spaces. There's one for the more Hispanic side of town, and it's called Hispano Chamber of Commerce. And they have like a great meeting space, and you can rent that out and interact. But anyway, so those one of my friends calls those soft networking, and BNI is like direct networking, where see all these people on the screen there. In this case, since they've gone virtual since COVID, they usually would meet in the mornings or sometime during the week, one time a week, and they like keep track of statistics. Like this is like it maybe started organic, but this is very direct. They do this thing where so you join the group, and then the big thing is, and they kind of put on is the more you give, the more you get, because everyone has a time to have an ask. And they say, for instance, I would like to work with people to make their business systems flow better. So anyone know anyone like that? Send them my way. And so it's recorded how many people answered your request to give you people that went that. And those records are kept. And so it's kind of like a scoreboard. It's almost like playing a game in one sense, but also like to see how productive you are. And I don't know that they ever kick anyone out exactly, but it's obvious what you have or have not done in the group for each other, and like how much you're gaining from it. And so like there's this really strong accountability thing. And there's like 7 BNIs in Albuquerque, so I can only imagine how many are in Denver. But each one has a total different personality. Even though they're all same part of BNI New Mexico, which is part of BNI International, right? So you kind of, if you get into this, you choose which group you want to be part of by visiting a couple of them, and then they kind of do this direct connections. And you can only be, so for instance, I'm a professional organizer or a B2B for I don't know, inventory or something, but they can only have one of me. Then if they have like if they had Lisa in the group, they could only have one of her, with tax for small business or tax for businesses, right? But you think that's the group you'd chosen if you were given an option, or would you choose a different one?
So actually that's a strategy that you choose in a networking group, or at least that I do. So like some networking groups don't have the one per industry rule, and some do. And so what'll happen sometimes, like, we'll go to a group and there'll be a CPA there, and maybe the CPA does taxes and a few of the other things that we do, but maybe they don't touch bookkeeping or payroll. Right. So we'll fill that slot. Or if there's nobody in the accounting industry in the group, but they still want us to kind of narrow it down so they can bring more people into the group, then, it depends on what slots you're in other groups, what you want to highlight in that group. And some of it, like I said, is based on what you have to, what slot you have to fit into because of the existing members.
Right.
But if you have a choice, some of it will depend on the nature of the group, what kind of people you're interacting with. So if it's more of a B2C group, then you're going to highlight different services.
And a B2C is business to client or
business to consumer. So as opposed to business to business.
Yeah, B2B is business to business. Okay.
So like, for instance, we do taxes for businesses, but we also do taxes for business owners and just, anybody who, not literally anybody, but we do taxes. So if I were in a B2C group, I might highlight more of, say, the tax work that we do than speaking a lot about our payroll service or our advisory packages. So that's another thing to consider when you're doing, when you're in a networking group and you're trying to figure out, And even sometimes in groups where there's not a requirement to be one per person, depending on the nature of the group, you may find that you end up highlighting one of the aspects of your business more just because of the nature of that group, the attitude of that group, the kinds of leads you're getting from that group,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. And so you think BNI is like other groups you've been with?
No,
Oh,
I don't. So BNI, I mean, on the certain, they're all. So I went to a few BNI groups in Texas, in Dallas over the years that I've been networking. And for me and the type of business that I do, I was annoyed by all the homework in a BNI group.
right.
I mean, there's something to be said for, is this group valuable? Is it providing leads, things like that. But I'll tell you that requiring people to, in my opinion, requiring people to provide a certain number of leads every month and et cetera and so on means you get a lot, you're going to end up getting not so qualified leads just because somebody's trying to hit their quota in the group. Whereas in different groups, and I'm going to brag on myself for a minute. I used to run a network.
I like it. Go for it.
So in our group, we.
Oh, wait. Yeah, go ahead. I wasn't sure if I talked over you about something else, and now I'm talking over you again. So go for it. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So in our networking group, we didn't have a requirement to provide X amount of business to the other members in the group. And the thing is that actually ended up being the group that a lot of us got the majority of our networking business from. Because the group was not, we weren't solely focused on, here's 5 people out of my book for you to go and cold call. It was a group about building relationships. So we had really strong professional working relationships with each other. That's cool. And we ended up being the go-to people for each other. So there was like a realtor in the group, a banker in the group, a mortgage broker, a financial planner, and then a bunch of, other like people that we invited, things like that. And because it was a really strong, a relationship-based group, pretty much anytime the banker had somebody who started a small business who needed help with their books, we were on speed dial.
Yeah.
For that banker. And whenever anybody needed their taxes done to get a mortgage, I was on the mortgage broker's speed dial. Yeah. And anytime any of my clients wanted to refi, who did I refer them to? Yeah. That mortgage broker. And it wasn't that I wasn't in other networking groups,
right?
That I didn't have other people to refer to, but simply because we met 2 Tuesdays a month for lunch. But again, because it wasn't a lot of busy work. It wasn't a lot of, this is how, we wanted people to bring guests. We encouraged people to bring guests. We did have that requirement, but it wasn't like crazy stringent because you are running a business, not, not doing a lot of playing business. You still have to, meet with your clients and do all of that. So yeah, for me, BNI was not the kind of group that I wanted. And also it depends on what you do. Because if you're doing something where the relationship makes a real difference.
Yeah.
So like in my industry,
That's
like if I don't have a rapport with my clients, we're not going to get anywhere at all.
right.
So if we don't have any rapport, then they're just going to have to go somewhere else. Because then we're not going to be able to do our work effectively. But on the flip side, if somebody's just selling office supplies, then the relationship is less less of a deal breaker. Um, well, I mean, obviously, if somebody's horrifically unpleasant, but if you
Yeah.
can get through the chit chat enough to get through your office supply order, it's not going to really matter.
Yeah, you're done with that person.
Right, but when you're in a situation, and you probably deal with this as well, because
Yeah.
when people end up having to tell you more
Hmm.
personal
Especially,
information.
especially because in my business, it has a lot to
Yeah,
do with mindset. And I
exactly.
mentioned this before too for your stuff.
So when you're dealing with having to find out more personal details about somebody, more than what brand of pen they're really into, um, the relationship really matters. Yeah, right. But I mean, that's something that not that you know you don't need to feel particularly close to somebody to tell them what pen you love.
No, who cares, right?
But to be able to get into their mindset, to figure out how to create their workflows and their processes, and for me to be able to get them to trust me enough to tell me the things that I really need to know about their lives in order to help them.
That's really interesting. So what you're saying is that all of these networking groups, the ones that really have worked well for you, are the ones that are about relationships in themselves, as
Yes.
opposed to things that are just about data, like how many pens did you sell? That
Right.
kind of
That's what I've found. If you're in a business that
yeah.
requires you to have strong relationships with your clients.
I'm gonna I'm gonna take a nuance with that if I may. So the guy that really interested me in the BNI stuff, he is an advertiser or something or other like that. Anyway, he does videos and all that sort of stuff with and he says he breaks businesses. Makes them have so much business that they can't handle it. Anyway, great way to chat in. But he says he and another like financial advisor person in the group, they're the ones that wait the longest to see any results from the group.
Yes.
But because of what you're saying, and well, the way I'm hearing what you're saying too is instead of seeing it as many people might see, like all this data that they're collecting or that you have to collect, that instead of seeing that, if you do join in BNI, for instance, that you want to make sure you're focusing on the relationships over the data. So that's a thing. But I think that's hard to do because we really fall back. Like we like to fall back on things that are easy to measure. That's why
Well,
racism is so handy.
we
Like,
still, I mean,
don't
so
tell it.
I'm not saying don't focus on
Yeah.
any data at all. One thing that we do in-house is every time we get a client, we track where we got that client from.
Uh-huh.
And every year-ish, sometimes more than once a year, but always at least once a year, we run that report to see if there are networking groups that aren't
Yeah.
that aren't providing any value for us at
Right.
all. If we're not so like we'll track, okay, well, we got this referral from so and so is in this group, and so is in this group, and so on and so forth, which is how I knew where all my business was coming from during those years when I was running that networking group. I was still in other networking groups.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just added a field to QuickBooks when we were still doing that. But yeah, when we started out, we had QuickBooks. And so we added a field in the customer record that says, that said, where did the customer come from? And then that's how we know, that's how we were tracking that data But at the same time, keeping in mind, that's why I say, we're not like constantly examining the data every week, every month, and so on, because again, when you're in a business where the relationship is key,
Yeah.
it's gonna take you longer to see results than when you run into the person who sells office supplies and you're like, oh great, I was gonna go to Office Max like right after this
Yeah.
to stock up, and you just buy from them. So yeah, it's not that data is not important, but to be mindful of the industry that you're in when you decide how to keep up with that. And it's just, like I said, you want to, I always, especially when the relationship is important, you definitely need more qualified leads. You don't just need like random people like, oh, here's 5 people who might need their taxes done.
Yeah.
But
Miriam, who who's been on was on last week.
She did last week's 1 Million Cups.
She was also on here.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We talked. Yeah. So she's my business coach, and she's pointed out too, like, BNI didn't really work for her. She does this funny thing though, where her chiropractor isn't part of a BNI, and so they will trade spots. Like if there's a time, because attendance is a big thing.
Yes.
And if the chiropractor isn't able to make it, Miriam will come in and fill in for her and kind of, be the participant, and exchange some stuff then. But it didn't work for her because her leads last so long, like once she's got them, and it takes so long to develop them. And that she couldn't, she wasn't going to return the amount of leads that BNI, like she could, and she didn't want to do the cold call. Like, oh, here's a number. There you go.
Exactly.
So, and that's what they say too. I did some research on it, and I'm focusing on BNI because it's something I've done research on. But they said when not to join BNI, and this was written by someone in BNI. And they said, like, if you don't have the time to give or the extra amount in your account, but if you don't have the time to give and create actual leads, then this isn't for you. And this actually person wrote it while she was part of BNI. BNI liked it. And then she apparently left because she had another page that said the same thing after she left BNI. But she said that so often they would get these cold leads or barely lukewarm, like something kind of in there, as opposed to like actually saying, oh, you really want this? Oh yeah, this was the person. You're building it up and saying, okay, here you go.
Yeah. And
I don't know if I have time to do that.
Right. Which is why I shied away from BNI, because I'm I'm running an accounting business, not a lead generating business.
Right.
And so our focus has always been on building relationships. There's a reason I get up at 9:00, before 9:00 every Friday morning. Despite the fact that I'm not a morning person, but I'm here to build relationships with all of you, because that's how you build your business.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I really liked about the book, Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port, is that he focuses really on, he's like, so you're doing this because, and he's a spiritual guy, and so am I. So like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because I feel called to actually do something for people, right? And in the world, like we're filling something. I don't know if I ever misquote this. I keep on trying to look it up, and every time I do, oh, that's who said it. I think it was Rosa Parks. So Rosa Parks might have said this, but maybe someone else did. What you need to do is you become who you're supposed to be, or who you want to be, and then the world will find you. And that's how you become like successful in your business. It's like it's less about the leads themselves as to like finding where you meet what the world is asking for. And that's kind of the big focus I have. And I get the feeling, and maybe I'm putting it on him, but I get the feeling it's the same thing Michael Port's about. He's like, figure out what you actually, what turns you on, what makes you so excited about getting up to do your work every day. and then figure out who you like to work with. And then you put those two together and you let everyone else find someone else. You can even push them to someone else, but you figure out you. So that's.
No, definitely. That's, that's the only way to go long-term, because especially when you first start out, I remember when I first started out, and of course I started out in a really rough time because I think I've told you, we started our business 2 months before the Great Recession.
Oh yeah. Good job.
We only survived because we do accounting, like
right.
for real.
I did for COVID, huh?
Right. Yeah, exactly. At least you have a little bit of a client base built up. I got to build up my client base in the middle of it. But my point is that, when we first started out, because the economy had just crashed and it was, it was just insane. Like, we literally took everybody, everybody. I mean, like, I could write a book on the interesting people we have run across. And a lot of them were from my early years, although I still run across interesting people now. But I mean, some seriously nutty people, like, like the guy who would call me for 2 hours every day while I was doing his tax return to tell me about how he was going to sue the IRS for emotional distress.
You should tell him you were going to sue him for emotional distress.
I know, right? But my point about all this is taking literally all comers, because we were just trying to survive and eat and stuff.
Yeah.
We got a lot of crazy people who all I have out of it is some crazy stories. And, I mean, some of it helped us figure out like what areas, what types of businesses we like to work with and what types of businesses we don't. But when you're taking everybody, it's such a freaking drain on your energy, because you get these people who are nut jobs.
And some of the most efficient people in the world, like, are people that actually have lack of energy. Like, they only have like some sort of disability. Like my friend's wife, she has an energy disability, and she's one of the most efficient people I know, because she understands, like, okay, this is out of my realm. I'm going to focus my energy here.
Yes. And so yeah, in the beginning, you're like, let's just deal with everybody. And then you get, you finally get burned out from that, because you're tired of dealing with people that you freaking hate.
Yeah. It's the 80-20
and then you change your strategy.
It's that 80-20 rule too, of like, you get 80% of your profit from 20% of your clients, kind of thing. This was like Tim Ferriss really pushed this idea. And so you got to cut off that 80% that's, not actually going to make, or at least cut off the 20% that's taking up 80% of your energy.
Well,
so, in that case, I'm not even at that point. So I'm more of like, I'm going to kind of shave them off as I'm going along, and they will find who they need to find. I'm going to move to Cody real quick, if you don't mind, because Cody, you've got a whole nother aspect, because Lisa and I kind of go from client to client throughout the day, but you kind of like focus on just being a business with a business for a good amount of time. So does it look much different than you? So
no, well, I mean, it's no, I mean, this is more relationship based. It's also kind of size of magnitude based.
Yes.
There's been contract engagements I've had that are 6-9 months long with one and that's it. Then you also have to balance that with still remaining engaged with your community, so that you have potential for backlog, so you can roll into the next thing. Or things like have happened with me. I've had my own consulting firm for 8 years now. And then there are times where an engagement turns into a full-time position for me. So that, what does that do for my, the brand that I do contract work and consulting work under? Well, that pretty much goes dormant. There's been times, we've lit it back up for other people that I've known, if they didn't want to file their own LLC or their own limited corp. They've done work underneath my own because I have, federal tax ID and those types of mechanisms that make it a little bit easier. Sometimes companies don't want to sign on an individual, but they want to sign on an entity to do work. But no, I mean, Lisa, obviously, like you know how to work the network and do it and all that. And, it's a matter of time, to get you up to speed, Adam, on the nuances, the terminology, how to do it.
Yeah.
How to be tactical. So knowing where to spend time, when, how much, so you're not spread too thin. And then, going from there. But right now, I think you are very much in the stage of shotgun approach. So, you are going very much a big shotgun approach, but then you have to be, very savvy about, okay, that worked, that didn't work. A/B testing. And if you're not the A/B testing, dig into it today because you should be doing A/B testing. The methodology of it,
right?
Or as you're developing this. But I do need to, guys. I have a 10 a.m.
Okay.
Talking to you. Take care. See you, Lisa.
I'm gonna wrap up here. So I'll do my last bit there. Miriam calls it iterations when he says A/B testing. So that like you just try different things of like, oh, so I'm gonna focus on this group for a while, and then I'm trying to find my share here, and then which one am I sharing? It's not making it obvious to me.
Yeah.
Is this?
I see your checklist.
Okay, I shared the wrong one. This is the disadvantage of like having everything look the same when I open the share screen and having too many screens open.
Yeah, it drives me nuts with the share screen on Zoom.
Yeah. I don't have a better suggestion for them right now, but I do have a better suggestion for myself, which is that I do, so the presentation's up, right?
Yeah, now it's the presentation.
Okay.
So just a little, one thing that I do, because, I have to do a lot of Zoom calls all day to walk people through their tax returns.
Yeah.
I have my Zoom browser. So so you know how you can open not just separate tabs, but separate internet windows. So I have one window that has everything I'm going to want for that particular call.
Oh, yeah.
And then I can flip back and forth with the tabs in just that one window.
Right. That's nice. Yeah. And I tried to get that set up for this, but I didn't, well, I'm behind this week, but that's okay. It happens. I did, by the way, it's talking about being behind or on top of things. Since last week, I didn't have the meetup ready. I've got it ready now for next week. So
you're like, oh, she's going to be on that. Yeah, I every week, like on Fridays, I make sure to plan out what groups I'm going to next week.
That's great.
Based
on a lead thing.
What's on my calendar. Well, again, it's not all about leads. It's about building relationships, because you may never ever have a client who needs my services, but you may refer me to people who do have clients who need my services.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Although you probably know way more people in Albuquerque right now than I do. So, but in time, as we get plugged into different networks, sometimes it's not all about, me saying, oh, here's a client. It's me saying, oh, I met the head of the plumbing association for the greater New Mexico area. Here's their contact info. You should totally talk with them.
Cool. I'd love to.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, yeah, it's every week you got, and attendance is really important. So that's, trying to figure out what groups you can make every week and how to make your schedule so that you can make.
You've been going to Activate New Mexico, right?
I've been to some of their things. It just depends on what I have going on my client calendar, because they like to pick times that are also popular with my clients.
That'll be a problem.
So
I missed it this last week.
I've been keeping an eye on those to see like the ones that I think are particularly valuable and maybe I can move my clients around.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now they're on Wednesday mornings right after 1 million cups. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, Wednesday is payroll day.
Ooh.
So yeah, so like we're trying to make sure, because you know, direct deposit on Friday, you have to transmit on Wednesday.
¿Es posible practicar tu español la taza en tu casa?
Yeah, my Spanish is not that great yet.
They'll speak in English too. They'll say it both in English and Spanish if you show up. Us gringos. But anyway,
I'm learning since I moved back to New Mexico. Because I haven't done Spanish since I left New Mexico because it wasn't as necessary in Dallas.
Yeah, and so Friday Flow is going to be on inventory next week. My big plan, and it was one of those things where it's like you may not think you have inventory, but there's all kinds of inventory. And so I'm hoping you're able to continue giving your return on the investments for everybody, which is a big thing. Michael Port also says, he's like, your whole point of doing this is people invest in you and then you give them amazing things. That's just why, you know, it's built.
Right.
So I hope you enjoy joyfully organizing your business and keep the sparks flowing. So that gets to wrap that up so you can move on to planning your week, Lisa.
Yay. All right, I'll see you.
Thanks for coming. It's always great to have you.
Oh, it's nice to have this group. I enjoy it.
Thank you. Bye. Anyway, so those one of my friends calls those soft networking, and BNI